Liverpool taking on Manchester City, and what a brilliant match this turned out to be. It would be Liverpool had opened the scoring early, Trent Alexander with the effort that was deflected off Ake into the back of the net. Liverpool then in the ascendancy for a while until Manchester City got themselves together, and they would eventually get the equaliser through new signing Alvarez in the second half. However, Salah would convert a penalty that was won after Darwin Núñez's header was handballed by Ruben Diaz, and then later on Núñez with the goal to give Liverpool a 3-1 win. Well, for more on this, outside of the King Power Stadium now, Don Hutchinson and Nader Manua are with us. Don, just overall, this was a brilliant match, wasn't it?
It really was, Dan. The tempo, the speed, I think the closing down from Liverpool was super impressive. You could see what Man City were trying to do. They're trying to play through the thirds. Pep wasn't happy. He was screaming at the back line to try and play balls forward a lot quicker. But it was one of them games, Dan. The Community Shield is a great game to play. And I mean, I've been on the end of a 4-3 loss when Eric Cantona scored 3 against Leeds, and it hurt because you want to try and take good form and positive form into the starting game in the Premier League in a week's time. So for Liverpool, it put down a real marker. And Núñez getting off the mark, he was right by us in the corner flag, and the fans took to him straight away. He had 1 or 2 chances, but great day for Liverpool fans.
Speaking of Liverpool fans, one of them, very close to me, has spent the week telling us it's just a glorified pre-season friendly, doesn't really matter. I tell you what, when Darwin Núñez scored, Shaka, how was his reaction?
It was very animated, is about as nicely as I can put it.
I know, very, very not Disney friendly.
But this didn't... At no stage did this feel like a Community Shield final. And as Don's telling you, he's played in one, I've played in one. And it felt like it. I remember.
Right.
It didn't feel like a proper game.
Okay.
It didn't feel like a normal game. And this did not feel like a Community Shield game. This felt like a proper game. This felt as though both sides felt there was something in this. And they had, not something to prove, but they didn't want to lose. And I think by the end of the game, we saw that Liverpool, more than City, wanted it.
Right.
Because they looked hungrier. Certainly going forward as an attacking force, Liverpool were far superior than Manchester City were going forward, although City had more of the ball. Liverpool just had a bit of an edge to them, as if they were saying, right, we want to lay down a marker.
And in particular, obviously, Darwin Núñez impressed you when he came on.
Well, he came on for half an hour, and in that half an hour, he completely changed the game for Liverpool. You know, up until Liverpool scored, Liverpool were by far the better side. And then it sort of kick-started City.
Yep.
And until they equalised, actually, they were the better side. And then it went back again to Liverpool. But a big part of that was Núñez. Not just the fact that he scored a goal, but he was a complete and utter threat for every single reason you want your centre-forward to be. He was running in behind. He was physically fighting with his defenders. I mean, every single thing he did with... There was a purpose to it. And of course, when he scored his goal, you see how passionate he was. And it actually just, it clung to everybody else, the Liverpool fans, his teammates. I mean, it almost felt like a final he'd scored in, not the Community Shield that we all, particularly me, poo-pooed during the week.
Nadim, do you agree about Núñez's impact?
Yeah, I do. And interestingly, it's so different to the way Firmino was, because Firmino's coming short, he's linking the play very well, whereas for Núñez, as we were listening to there, like, he's stretching the line, he's getting behind, he's pushing people about, and he had a real good goal threat, rather. Like, he scored that goal, he had the one-on-one, which, you know, Don would say that he should have done better with. You think he should have probably dinked it, but he made an instant impact, and when he's out there and he scored that goal, the passion in that corner, like, you know, I was trying to hide as a City guy in that Liverpool section, but they were going nuts. You know, you could see how much that meant to him. The fans were on board with it. And that's another side of the recruitment, isn't it? You know, you've got the stuff on the field. You know, are you a good player, but are you passionate?
Even the bench, Jordan Henderson ran straight past us.
Everybody ran down. Like, you know, people are buying into him. And I think that's what you need, because that means there's going to be a level of excitement going into this season, because, you know, you've lost Mane, but you've brought somebody in who you believe you can get behind. So it's good to see him get an opportunity. But, you know, Don said it earlier on in the day. He still doesn't think he starts in that first game of the season, because you think that's going to be Firmino's spot.
That's something I'm sure we will discuss as the week goes on. Darwin Núñez won the penalty Shaq, that we saw, obviously. He came on as the substitute, had the chance, won the penalty with the header, not the most convincing of headers. For you, was it a penalty?
Yes, I think it was. And listen, as a defender, Ruben Diaz going up for the header, kind of got himself in a bad position, or maybe the ball was just that good that exposed him. And his arm ended up being extended. And though you're right, I don't think it was a great header, it was goalward-ish, and with the extended arm, especially an arm raised as relatively highly as the ball catches him here, just up around chest or shoulder height, once the referee goes to the screens, I never doubted that he'd point to the spot. And then once he does, there's little doubt that Mo Salah buries it.
Do you agree, Don?
No, there's a lot of issues in Xhaka's explanation there. Not on target-ish. I don't, Dan. I don't. I thought Liverpool were lucky. I thought if you put yourself in Ruben Diaz's situation, and it was a great ball from Mo Salah, and he did get himself, Xhaka's right in a bad position. Nunes pulled off him. But then as a centre half, when you're trying to recover and you're trying to get the flight of the ball, then you're trying to adjust your body position by running, which is natural, and then the ball got headed off your hand from, what was it, half a yard away? I don't think it gives any room for the defender to try and manipulate his hands out of the way. It didn't give him enough time. So that's why I thought it was very harsh.
Stevie?
Well, had he been half a yard away, I would have had a problem with it. But he's not half a yard away. He's a good couple of yards away. His hand is out, and the way the rules are written, whether the ball's on target or not, the way the rules are written, the way the game's refereed today, you're never winning an argument whether that's a penalty or not. And it took the referee, 2 looks?
Yeah.
Normally when they go to VAR, it's like you wait half an hour and they have about 20 looks. He saw it the first time and he probably thought, I'll just double check, and then off he went. So, yeah, it's a penalty all day long.
To that point, and point that Don was making in response to me, is it doesn't have to be intentional. It doesn't have to be directly on target. It just, for me, it has to have an impact on the game. And now there's a couple of ways of looking at this that I've heard referees describe. If you find yourself out of position and are trying to do something to make up for being out of position, and you get penalised for it, that's on you.
Right.
If he was closer to Darwin Nunez, if he was touch tight and the ball just beats him, and then it comes off his arm from half a yard away, you sympathise with Ruben Diaz. But if you're 2 yards away, you jump, the ball beats your head, you have no chance to get it, you jump, and your arm is extended in jumping, in being out of position, then you've got little recourse. And that's the thing for me here.
Nathan?
Yeah, I disagree with most of that, but that's fair enough, because one thing is, like, we're talking about his arm being extended, and I think for me that's an arm being extended. Yeah. His arm's in this position here, and as well, when you go and look at the video replay, when the ref goes to see it, the key thing is the fact that it's in slow motion, so all of a sudden it looks worse than it is. But for Diaz, if he's reacted to a ball that's come like that from him, like, he's got better reactions than any goalkeeper we've ever seen before. I think he's unlucky from that, because I don't know what else he could have done. I think someone might say, oh, pull your arm out of the way, but then if you jump up like this, that's an unnatural position. He's reacted, and the fact is the ball's been headed onto his arm, in my opinion, as opposed to his arm hitting the ball. So we can say, intent doesn't matter, but in the laws of the game, intent does matter, because it says it's a deliberate thing, where he's not tried to make himself bigger, he's not tried to stop the ball with his hand. And I guess in some ways he's unlucky, because at this point now, like, what can you do as a defender in that position?
2-2 then. The deciding vote goes to former Premier League referee Peter Walton, who I spoke to, who said that, yes, it was a penalty. Meanwhile, for Manchester City, the big story going into this, Nathan, was, of course, Erling Haaland, his first start in a big game, a start, really, that he'll want to forget.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was not great, to be honest. But I think especially in that first half, he was making some good movements, making some good runs, but then I feel in the second half it kind of fell off a little bit. I think himself and Kevin De Bruyne weren't really connecting as well in that second half. There was that chance as well, I think, with where he tried to almost scissor kick it when maybe he should have done a diving header. Yeah. But the fact is, I'd be very surprised if they were perfect at this stage. There were 1 or 2 promising signs, and I think for City, they need to understand that, when he's in there, maybe put more balls into the box. Yeah. When there's a chance to play a ball in behind, even if it's a channel ball, kind of like Liverpool do, play it, and I think in time they will understand that. But he'll be disappointed, and especially to finish with that miss that he had. But that's what happens when you switch off. He's gone through the motions of it,
essentially. In that first half, Nathan, there was a classic moment where De Bruyne got himself in the De Bruyne position, right-hand side, 6-yard box, and you could close your eyes and you go, what ball is he going to play?
Yeah.
And he flashes it hard and low.
Yeah.
Haaland made the run to the near post.
And he tried to cut it back.
And he tried to cut it back. And it was like, it's the players, Dan, I think, need to get used to Haaland, not Haaland getting used to them, because there were so many times Jack Grealish had the ball and Haaland started to move off again in the first half where he was big, he was physical, he rolled the centre-backs, he got away from Jordan Henderson, he played it out to Jack Grealish on the left-hand side. We had a great vantage point, he sprinted in the 18-yard box, Jack Grealish got the ball to his feet, instead of taking Trent on, he cut back, he went safe, and he gave the ball away, and Haaland standing there saying, put it in the box. And we had Morris on the other side, same situation.
And I think as well with Haaland, it's really obvious what his strengths are.
Yeah.
He's strong, he's quick, he's good in the air, he's desperate for a goal. So when you're under pressure, you can play those balls down the channel. Yeah. He'll be able to hold somebody off. When you think, should we get across into the box, there's a guy in there, 6'2", desperate to score. And I think for City, it's making that adjustment, understanding that that is where they're going to bear a lot of fruit this season, should they decide to do it. But I think in some ways, they're probably still struggling a little bit from playing with a false 9 because they're thinking everything has to be short. But now they've got one of the best threats in behind in world football.
How easy is that adjustment to make, Stevie?
It's not easy, but it's made easier by not good players, but players with good football brains and some repetition.
Right.
And when you add all those things together, then you should see a change in the timing of the ball going in particular. You know, centre forwards hate nothing more than anybody wide who has the opportunity to play a ball in behind for them and cuts back, because then they have to come back out and start again.
Right.
And it's the timing of it and the understanding of who's on the ball. And once you get all those things, then things happen naturally. So yes, they have the intelligent football players that will figure it out, but to do it, it'll be repetition, not just in games, but they have to, you know, sort of simulate it in training as well, so that you can then carry it into the game.
Nathan, what will be Guardiola's biggest concern after what he saw today?
I think in some ways, it may be like there's I wouldn't necessarily say attitude, but towards the end of the game, you can see like for those Liverpool players, they were very much on the front foot. I think for some of the City players, maybe they put their heads down just a little bit. I think some of that maybe comes with the fact that they're maybe a week behind Liverpool in terms of their pre-season prep. But still, it's a big game. It's against a rival. You know, it does matter. But then also, I think it was some of the giveaways and some of the decision-making. Like Don was seeing from the sideline, it seemed really obvious from where we were. You know, we've got the best vantage point in the house. Like, they want to have switches of play to the fullbacks who are higher. They wanted to try and get people in behind, and Pep was trying to say, do this, do this, do this, but they weren't doing it. So I guess for him, it's just a case of trying to figure out why they weren't doing that. Is it because they didn't see it or they didn't believe in it?
We watched Pep's body language, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
And he was screaming, Dan. He was screaming for Ruben Diaz to try and hit diagonal balls from his side over to Jack Grealish, because it was on, because Liverpool's sort of two fullbacks went either high up the pitch or quite narrow. And that's the worry, why the players in midfield or the backline players couldn't spot the pass. And then second half, someone pinged one across, I think it might have been Rodri, and he'd done a sort of sarcastic applause, as if to say, and we read his lips one time, he turned around to his bench and he went, it's so easy, why can't they see it? So that's something that he'll be concerned about. Why didn't they see that pass?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.